Okay, if we want to take advantage of having data to figure out whether a particular policy has succeeded or failed, we need two things, or I guess you could say we need at least two things. We need time to allow that policy to either succeed or fail, or maybe do neither. But we also need to know what to measure, right? Just having data isn't useful unless we know what are we looking for? What would be a sign that a policy has succeeded or failed? We can now apply this sort of paradigm, this infrastructure, to look at Donald Trump's tax cuts. And I say that with some reservation because it wasn't actually a tax cut for everyone. And even some of the people who did get a tax cut in the short term, it's not a permanent tax cut, but I think you know what I'm talking about when I say the Trump, quote, tax cuts. So we've had some time. It's been a little while. Now we're starting to get a sense of the effect. But what should we measure to figure out whether the tax cuts have been successful or not? Well, I think the most relevant way to do this would be to look at what Donald Trump claimed would be the effect of the tax cuts and see if it was. And the big picture was that the tax cuts will reduce government revenue in a sort of short-term micro way, but they are going to cause the economy to grow so much, the economy is going to be on fire, that the tax cuts will pay for themselves and will reduce the deficit overall. So tax cuts go down, so government revenue goes down, but the tax cuts that rich people and corporations gets put right back into the economy, and it will trickle down and generate so much new income and productivity that government revenues will actually go up, and then they can reduce the deficit and start paying off the debt. This hasn't happened, okay? To make it very short for you, we have a new report from the National Association of Business Economics. 84% of respondents, businesses, have not changed plans as a result of the corporate tax cut. 75% say they have not, nor do they have plans to increase hiring. So think about that for a second. Corporate tax rate goes from 35% to 21%. That's a 40% cut, okay? Going from 35 to 21 is a 40% decrease in the corporate tax rate. 84% of businesses make no change to their capital investment at all. The other 16 are either increasing or some are decreasing capital investment. Remember, the other 16 aren't all increasing capital investment. Those who are increasing capital investment and are increasing hiring need to now make up for a 40% reduction to the corporate tax rate to make this tax plan deficit negative, meaning that it reduces the deficit. Obviously, it wouldn't. I mean, just think about this at the most basic level. If I'm a business owner and I get a tax cut, nothing else changes. Why do I hire people, right? Why do I go and choose to increase my operating costs by adding employees because I got a tax cut? I would hire more employees if there's more demand for my product or service. If I have the staff to make 100 widgets and the demand for my widgets is at 100 widgets, why would I go and hire people to be able to make 200 widgets? That would be a really dumb move. If all of a sudden the demand for my product goes up to 200 widgets, now I have a reason to go and hire employees in order to be able to accommodate that increased demand. If I get a tax cut and nobody wants more of my widgets, it would be stupid to hire more people. And the proof is in the deficit numbers. We were told this would be so good for the economy that we would start to cut away at the deficit. We might even start to pay off that national debt if we ever got to a surplus. And it's all nonsense. The reality is that we learned this week that the U.S. Treasury is going to have to maintain this increased level of borrowing, planning more than $1 trillion in borrowing for the second straight year. And it's partially because of Trump's tax cuts. It's partially because of other policies, all of which are increasing the deficit. You can argue we shouldn't be so worried about the deficit, and I would agree with you. But again, we are evaluating the policy on the basis of what Trump said it would do. It's completely predictable, and it plays right into China's hands, because to finance this deficit, we are selling long-term debt called 3, 10, and 30-year securities. Who is a big buyer of these securities? It's China. Trump told us he was going to take back control of our economy from China. And instead, China and other countries are buying our debt so that we can finance our government operations despite increasing deficits, which Trump told us that he would reduce. It is lose, lose, lose. And the crazy thing about this, Pat, is that we knew it would happen. Our own government, the Congressional Budget Office, told us this is exactly what's going to happen. We knew it would happen. Serious economists knew it would happen. And they either didn't care or didn't believe it. And as usual, the estimates were right. Do you think they even care about this reality, or have they moved on to something else, Pat?
I would go even further and say that from the get-go, they knew that this wasn't going to work, that the tax cuts wouldn't just spur so much economic growth that they would pay for themselves. I think that they weren't arguing in good faith. They just wanted to serve their donors. They wanted to serve their corporate overlords. And when you think about what Trump was able to get done legislatively in his first 2 years, it wasn't much. He was pretty much impotent. He couldn't repeal Obamacare. He couldn't get his wall built. But yet again, he was able to get the tax cuts passed. And I think that's really telling.
The normal but David responses here are going to be, but David, what about X company which is hiring more people? Well, lots of companies are firing and not hiring despite getting tax cuts. But more importantly, if the tax cuts objectively created hiring more than just anecdotally, you would see most companies hiring more people, and hiring depends a lot on the underlying economic conditions, which have been good for years, although they're now slowing down. But David, what about X company which gave people raises? Lots of companies give raises periodically anyway. Others are announcing them, but are phasing them in over multiple years. Many of them would be giving raises regardless of tax cuts. What matters here is the aggregate, not individual anecdotal stories that we can tell. And the aggregate is just not good for these tax cuts. And every month we get more and more data to support that. Hey guys, if you have a dog or a cat at home, or if you're looking for the perfect gift for somebody in your life who has a dog or a cat, check out today's sponsor, PetBox, a subscription box where you can get 50% off of your first box when you click the link under this video and use the coupon code Pakman. When you sign up for PetBox, you get an awesome selection of premium toys, all natural treats for your dog or cat, delivered to your doorstep every month. And each month the box is totally different. It's actually very affordable. When you sign up for the dog box, you tell them what size dog you have, and you get a monthly variety of chew toys, raw hides, bags of dog treats, and a whole bunch of other cool items catered to the size of your dog. The cat box comes with a ton of different stuff every month, like catnip, toys, snacks, things for them to scratch on. And almost everything that comes in each box is made by small, family-owned businesses. I just got the dog box for my dad's English lab named Nemo, who, if you follow me on Instagram, you're probably familiar with. Got a bunch of cool stuff, including pterodactyl treats and a chew hide thing. Obviously, I don't know what all these things are called. And a toy, which I know my dad is just going to love that noise. And the best thing about PetBox is that they give 10% of the proceeds to a nonprofit called Tender Loving Canines, which helps provide service dogs to people with autism and to vets with PTSD. So part of your purchase goes to a really good cause. And like I said, you can get half off your first box when you click the link under this video and use the coupon code PAKMAN. That's PAKMAN.